But how did Stella track her diet so precisely? Kaylee knew the complexities of combining many foods into a balanced diet. Even professional dietitians have to use computer programs to manage this. Could it be she might have been forgiven for wondering that Stella was secretly an expert in nutrition? Except that Stella was a baboon. A confounding story, when you consider all the dietary advice we humans seem to require in order to eat properly. Not that it does most of us a lot of good. Meanwhile, our wild cousin, the baboon, apparently has figured it all out by instinct. How could such a thing be so? Before we begin to explore that question, here's another tale, even weirder. It starts with a lab scientist named Audrey Dusautour at the University of Sydney. One day, Audrey took her scalpel and started preparing an experiment by cutting a gooey blob of slime mould into small pieces. Beside her, on the bench, sat hundreds of Petri dishes, all set out neatly in rows. Audrey picked up each fragment of yellow goo with forceps and carefully transferred it into the centre of a dish, then covered it with a lid. The dishes contained either small blocks of protein or carbohydrate, or a wheel of 11 tiny bits of jelly-like food medium varying in the ratio of protein to carbs. Once all the dishes had received their bit of slime mould, Audrey stacked them in a large cardboard box and left them overnight. The next day, she opened the box and laid out the dishes again on the bench. When she looked closely, she was astonished. Each bit of goo had changed overnight. When the slime moulds were offered 2 blocks of food, one of protein, the other of carbs, the blobs extended their growing tendrils to both nutrients, reaching out just far enough in each direction to pull in a mix of the two. That mixture contained precisely 2 parts protein to 1 part carbs. Even more incredibly, when bits of goo were placed in dishes containing 11 different food blocks, the tendrils grew overnight from the center of the dish to colonize only the blocks containing that same 2-to-1 nutrient mixture, ignoring the rest. What is so special about a diet of 2 parts protein to 1 part carbs? The answer came when Audrey placed pieces of slime mould into dishes containing differing combinations of protein and carbohydrate. The next day, some bits of slime remained stunted, whereas others had grown dramatically, extending themselves across the dish in a lacy network of pulsing yellow filaments. When Audrey later mapped the growth of the blobs, it was as if she had charted the up and down contours of a mountain. Goo, placed on a nutrient that was 2 parts protein to 1 part carbs, sat at the summit of the growth mountain. As the proportion of protein fell and carbs rose, or vice versa, the blob's growth decreased. In other words, when the bits of slime mould were given the chance to select their own diet, they chose precisely the mixture of nutrients needed to optimize healthy development. Audrey's yellow goo, with the remarkable nutritional wisdom, is a creature with the scientific name Physarum polycephalum, literally many-headed slime. It is the real-life version of the blob of B-movie fame. It is seldom seen, but like other slime moulds, including the wonderfully named dog's vomit slime mould and fungi, it lives a secretive life among the leaf litter, logs, and soils of the world's forest floors. It is a single-celled creature with millions of nuclei, which can regenerate itself from tiny pieces, crawl like a giant amoeba, and grow its own complex, reticulated architecture of tubes that pulse and distribute nutrients around its network. It simply creates tentacles, and then reaches out with them to grab whatever it wants to eat. Fascinating, if a little horrifying. Now, we may be able to accept that Stella the baboon can make some wise